Rule number 3, make it right. Now, I'm going to tell you a story about a time that I really completely messed up. Good save. So we were about to go on our first big UK tour, and I really wanted to step up my stage show. We just released our first album, big tour, really wanted to do it well. So I decided that I was going to learn to spin my guitar, okay? So, right, does everyone know what spinning a guitar looks like? For those that don't, would you like to see what spinning a guitar looks like? Okay. Here's a video. There you go. Now, admittedly, I was better than that back in the day. So the month before the tour, I surrounded myself with mattresses and pillows, and I set out to learn how to do that. And really, there's a trick. There's just a little trick that if you get it right, it's pretty easy to do. Would you like to know that trick? Well, it doesn't matter if you don't, because it's the next part of my talk, so I've got to say it anyway. All you've got to do is throw it really hard. Just commit and throw it really hard. The momentum brings it back round. That's all you got to do. It's a little bit scary to start with, and you get a few bruises. But once you get it down, it's good. So I was like, right, where am I going to do this in our set? I didn't want to do it all the time. I didn't want to overdo it. I didn't want to show off. Well, I did, but just once. And I figured, okay, our very last song is our most popular song, and there was a part in the song that sort of went a little bit quiet before it went really super heavy metal, and I was like, I'm going to do it there. So we get into practice. Spin, digga, 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 digga. Perfect. Now, as an aside, that is pretty much what all of our songs sounded like, so don't go and buy our album. You've heard it all. And it was great. So first night, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was pretty nervous, actually. I get there, I get to the part. Spin, digga, 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 digga. Crowd goes wild. They loved it. I was like, yes. Next night. Right, that's a cymbal, by the way. I wasn't playing this. I'm just demonstrating that there was a... Doesn't matter. Spin, digga, 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 digga. Crowd went wild again. Worked really well all the way through the tour, and then we got to the last date. It was our hometown show. Biggest crowd of the entire tour. Get to the end. Super excited. Spin. What had happened was, I had practiced so much that I had worn the leather from my strap. And instead of spinning my guitar, I just threw it really hard, remember that part, into a wall. So I had a decision to make. Do I run off stage crying, which was actually quite tempting? Or do I fix the experience in the experience? So within a split second, I ran forward and dived majestically into the crowd like a swan. Luckily, they caught me. And I got crowd surfed into the mosh pit. So, does anyone know what a mosh pit is? Has anyone ever been in a mosh pit? Okay. So for those of you that don't know what a mosh pit is, when your music is so melodic and glorious that it forces your fans to transcend to a place of majesty, and then they want to punch their friends in the face, that is a mosh pit. So I'm in the mosh pit having a great time. The crowd went even more wild than the nights that I didn't throw my guitar into a wall. As far as they were concerned, I became overwhelmed with heavy metal passion, threw my guitar and dived into the crowd with my fellow metalheads, where of course we know what actually happened. Now the key point of this is empowerment. I did not need to ask our manager to call the record label to see if I had permission to dive into the crowd. I understood the outcome that needed to be delivered, and I fixed the experience in the experience. I think we need to think a little bit more like this in business. Now, to help us think about this in a different way, I'm going to tell you a little story now about beer. So, imagine you are in a bar, and you're walking through the bar, and somebody's holding 4 beers, and you bump into them, and they spill the beers. There are 4 ways in which you can go about reacting to that situation. Number 1, you go, and hope they don't come after you. And most of the time they won't come after you, and you're here in the corner going, ha ha ha, I got away with it. Problem is, that person's now telling everyone else in the bar what a jerk you are. Remember that first impression stuff from earlier? Number 2, you run away, but they do come after you and they tap you on the shoulder and you turn around and go, actually, when you entered the bar, you agreed to a set of terms and conditions whereby if the bar was over an 80% occupancy, beer spillage was a possibility, and either way, you were carrying over the recommended load limit of 2 beers at 4 beers, so any drink replacement liability falls on your shoulders. Thank you, bye. Now he really thinks you're a jerk and might threaten to punch you in the face. Number 3, after he's threatened to punch you in the face, you go, okay, sorry, I'll replace the beers begrudgingly. That's kind of what we do most often in business. You know, customers will complain and then we'll begrudgingly put it right. They still think you're jerks. Or number 4, which is the way we would most likely act in real life but least likely act in business, we would immediately turn around, apologise, and replace the beers without them having to ask. Okay? So here's a handy little framework that you can think of to start doing this in your business. Identify, monitor, communicate, compensate. Identify the things in your experience that cause dissatisfaction. You probably have already got this data. Monitor the experience in the experience to notice when these things happen. When you notice one of these things has happened, communicate to the customer that you know something has gone wrong. Don't wait for the complaint. And then put it right. Compensate in some way. And it doesn't have to be a monetary compensation, but some sort of gesture goes a long way towards changing how a customer feels about what has happened. Now look, if you only take one thing away from this talk, it should be this. Only 4% of dissatisfied customers will complain. The rest will vote with their feet. So if you are only putting problems right for that 4%, you are missing a massive opportunity. We should be working to be far more proactive when it comes to this. So my recommendation here is don't wait for the complaint. Fix the experience in the experience.